use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang!
Reach scores! Yes! She got up!
He's just perfect. And that's
Sweet it is! Collingwood win the grand final!
It's
Welcome to Racing Xtra, powered by Corpshaw. I'm your host, Bella King, and joining me, as always, is Luke Dittman. This week, we couldn't resist the temptation to jump down to Sydney and join in on the Everest hype, so we're catching up with Adrian Bott and Tommy Berry. Welcome to Racing Xtra, guys.
Thanks very much.
How good's Everest week? How's all the events going, Adrian?
It's been a big build-up. Just had the barrier draw the other night. That was very vocal, everyone's opinion on that. But
what was your opinion of it?
Actually,
Get a bucket of popcorn?
You had to be there. I really enjoyed it. A lot of fun. Something different, unique, which is everything the Everest has sort of been. And the slot holders put a lot of money into it. Like they've got to be
definitely
entertained. They've got to have a good night and enjoy the build-up. And that's what the whole week's about. And you can definitely feel that build-up. And we haven't had that in Sydney for a long time, have we?
No.
In Melbourne, you get down there for Derby week and Cup week, and there's just a huge buzz the entire week. There's events on every day, every night, and you really feel the whole city sort of behind it. Whereas sort of Sydney Carnival always just used to be, racing's a bit, in it doing its own little thing. But now with the Everest, you can just feel this week the build up, the anticipation for it. It's changed.
You want it to feel like a grand final week, hey?
And that's what I think we've sort of been able to.
I think the thing is too, like if it's not over the top, they've missed the point.
That's
like
right.
we
Yeah.
all complain like it's showy, but if it wasn't, we'd be like, what are they doing? It's Everest week.
That's right. And even the race itself, like, tell me a time where we've got the top 5 jockeys in Melbourne on Caulfield Cup Day in Sydney.
That's incredible.
Exactly.
You would never have thought that would ever happen, but now that's the
Bit
new
of
norm.
cash will move people, mate.
It does. Well, they got 2 runners in the race, so he's earning more than me.
Bigger percentage too.
It is, yeah. I don't want to talk about it.
We've got a few more mouths to feed. That's all. I know you got plenty. Actually.
Yeah, I got plenty.
You
You've
got a
got
whole
horses,
farm
but I can
Jesus.
catch it.
Well, before we get too deep in the Everest chat, we're going to take a quick look at the week that was. And the whole racing world has gone absolutely nuts for Antino making the Toorak his own last weekend. Luke, it makes perfect sense that Blake Shin took out your Tenacity Cranes lift of the week. Take us through the ride.
Oh, he wins it hands down. He could actually go for Ride of the Year. I know it's an early contender, but it was just brilliant. Pace steadied towards that sort of 1,000-metre mark, and his split decision to just take off and lead the field up. Won him the race, and he did it with ease and he did it with style. My question to you boys, like as a jockey, what goes through your head when that pace comes back and if I sit in this position, I'm screwed, and if I go and get beat, I'm also screwed? Right.
Yeah, well, I think good jockeys make them sort of decisions, and at the end of the day, making a decision is better than not making a decision at all, and that's what Blake did. And reading his mind, looking at the race, it looked like he just went to take a bit more of a forward position, and as he's gone to do that, he's gone, you know what, I'm just going to go.
The horse was going good enough to cart him into the race.
100%. It's sort of, he's given it a kick in the belly, it's jumped on the bridle, and it might have gone a bit quicker than he expected, and he just said, well, you know what, and it was a smart ride because he got to the front before the corner, so he was back on the inside where apparently there was a bit of a bias on the day. I'm not sure. We might have to ask James McDonald a bit more about that. So it was a very smart ride to get there before he got to the home straight, and he was back on the fence, and he was way too good from there.
It's one of those things too. Like he had the race sewn up at the 300, which is hard to do in a Group 1.
Yeah, and he was very dominant, and even that horse, he's got a lot of ability, but he's a quirky horse to ride, and Blake's been able to get the best out of him. And I know he rides for your team a lot, and he's very good on quirky horses.
And not taking anything away from the rider or anything as well, but like huge effort by the horse and training performance from Tony there. Like it's not easy to be making horses have long sustained runs, particularly in Group 1s, but even then it's not as though he was sort of tiring and out on his feet there at the furlong. He put them away.
He could have got another furlong.
It was widening.
And he was due a Group 1. He'd been racing against good horses, and it was good to see him finally stamp one next to his name.
Yeah, so on all fronts it was
Is that a pattern now with that horse, do you think? Or because when they do it once, like a Pride of Jenny,
you rode the best bloody come from behind horse out there. Like.
Yeah, well, he was pretty.
And he was pretty
right.
smart too.
Yeah. I think he might have been a couple more levels above, so it made it easier. But you see the Pride of Jenny, she got ridden like it a couple of times now. That's the new norm for her. Like Antino's horse, he flops out the back. He takes a long time to get going. He's always got the flashing light on him. Is it going to be a new thing where he makes 2 runs? I know Designs on Robe, who I won the Derby on in Hong Kong. I used to make 2 runs on him all the time. So it might be something that they can look at going forward.
be an interesting task, especially if he stays down here or goes back up for a spell. But I want to talk about the controversy that Luke's experienced this week. Netflix launched their starting five, which followed NBA stars along their season. We applied a bit of a racing lens and created Luke's team of jockeys that are supposed to fill hypothetical positions. And a lot of people were very annoyed that you left Blake Shin and Tommy out. We need you to explain your choices on air.
I had a lot of DMs saying, "What are you doing?" But
Brave getting Tommy on the show now.
Yeah, I know, right?
I had to go through and make a team, right?
Yeah.
So, and racing isn't a team, as in when you're out there for jockeys. So I just tried to narrow it down to positions, and my team basically ran like this: Timmy Clark as your pace man, very good in front, very good judge of pace. Then I had Nash as the last 50 because no one can leave him, no one can lift him. Yeah, no one can lift him. Then I had Zara as sort of your clutch 3-point shot. Now there are many jockeys that could have fitted in this category, yourself being one of them, but I just lent on him in the fact that if you need to get a job done at that last crucial second, he was my man. Then Huey is your all-rounder. He's been doing it for years. You put him anywhere on the world and he's good enough. And then James is your team captain. Like his record stands on its own, and I think he deserves to be on the top of that list.
Any arguments?
I'd go Kieran McAvoy as team captain.
Oh,
yeah, great.
Just
good
an older
point.
head, he's been around a little bit longer. He's very good in he's a good all-round rider as well, but he's the president of our Jockeys Association as well, and it's for good reason. So I'd have him as the captain, and that's not knocking James. You could put him in an all-rounder spot maybe.
He'd be good on the bench, Jim.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, well, he's on the bench now. We'll put him on the bench now. But that's the only one I'd change there.
It's hard to pick holes in, isn't it? And we're in such a great position in Australia to have, the list could have gone on for
100%.
great multiple teams.
I had a bench and I had to narrow it down. So it's just there's so many.
But that's a good part about it. You got a lot of criticism because everyone's got a different opinion.
And everyone does have unique styles and strengths. Like I haven't ever seen it sort of really pitch together a team like that. Like position wise, everyone just asks who's the best jockey in Australia. But it is coming down to the different styles and techniques, and that's where Tim is a great example for us because the majority of our horses we like up on pace, and he's comfortable doing that. There's no point getting a jockey who's out of their comfort zone and trying to get them, even if they're the best jockey in Australia, trying to get them to
James
ride.
in front is uncomfortable.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's the weird thing I find about racing is you can go to the NFL or basketball and it's heavily stat driven. Like you go passing yards in NFL or 3-point shots in basketball. We don't really have that in racing. Like you're saying, if you take Tim Clark's leading rides, his strike rate would be through the roof. Then you take James's leading rides and it wouldn't be as good. But then James on even money favourites in Group 1, he gets the job done every time.
It's looked over as more of like a holistic lens, stats-wise, who's the most informed recently at that level rather than who suits the horse's tactics.
And your lifespan's 3 months in racing. If you don't have a good 3 months, then you may, if James or yourself or whatever has a bad 3 months, you go from 2 to 12 in a heartbeat, and it's a lot harder to go up than it is to go down.
That's the difficult part, and mentally as well, just trying to get the confidence back, or just even trying to get the opportunities. You feel you can be doing everything right, and just a few breaks aren't going your way. And like you said, people are pretty quick to, whether it be jockeys or if you feel like you haven't trained a few winners for a few weekends.
Do you find that you're ever having to prove yourself as a trainer? Do you find that now, or
I feel every day.
Yeah,
I feel you're only as good as that last result, and maybe that you put that in your own mind.
Yeah,
but I feel every month or week or whatever it is, you just have to continually be trying to show up and get the results, because otherwise I get petrified. You go to the sales next year, geez, no one's going to want to buy in a horse, or no one's want to give us a horse to train. You really need to be at the top of your game consistently for a long time, and it plays on your mind a little bit, because if you are questioning, second guessing, when things are going right, everything falls into place. And sometimes like, geez, I can't saddle up a loser here, and everything's just, and it all flows through on all levels. And then the other time when you just think, what am I doing wrong, and you start sort of trying to make little tweaks, or you second guess that decision, this decision, then it just all falls apart, doesn't it?
I think Frankie sort of summed it up best when he rode that Magnificent 7 at Ascot. He said it was the only day he went home and wasn't lying in bed and thought, I didn't fuck up today. And I think you guys can relate to this. You could ride 4 or 5 winners and run second on one. You'll go home and go, should have won on the one that runs second. And that's what professional sport is.
And that's what the best do.
But getting back to that stats as well, I think that's a space we're going to see change hugely going forward. We're seeing it on like Kieran Maher's a big innovator with it on the sort of data science on the horse training side of things. I think we're going to see it across all levels, and we're going to catch up with our sport codes pretty quickly. I think
As we should. I think it's overlooked for people outside of racing that horses are elite athletes. They're not just an animal that does this. They love it, but they're not just doing it off of their own merit.
Well, it's staggering. We're racing for 20 million this weekend. That's not as though there's
serious.
plenty of revenue or resources that are worthwhile putting into it, because the outcomes are significant. The volume of wagering put on these races is quite staggering. And hopefully with the more data out there and the more confidence people have got and the more visibility, I think that's only going to help encourage the industry and people understand what they're doing a little bit more. And I can only see it as a positive when it does come.
We're going to see you with the iPad in the birdcage, giving the old tippy tappies on the sideline.
I'd love to see that.
Not quite. I used to, working with Gay, she happy to embrace things, but when we're sort of in at the tower, everything just had to be, your eyes just had to be focused on everything. If I ever look down at a list, she's like, you should rip it out of your hands and look at the horse, notice the changes. So I don't think I'll ever be allowed an iPad just yet. But, and that's the thing, you do have to notice the subtle differences. It's that sort of attention to detail and everything that makes it work.
Absolutely.
I suppose that's the big thing with horses too. It's not like athletes, I can tell you if I'm sore or if I'm not mentally there, whereas horses can't do that.
You need to notice the small sniggle.
That's where these guys come in. They play such a huge, valuable role, because they'll pick up a lot of things that, you can't see, or, the horses very well, you can pick straight away, and when anything's sort of going amiss or just not quite right, or we rely.
And most people don't understand. Tommy will get on a horse at the races for the first time, being able to see it, and he's got 30 seconds to figure out its mentality, how good it is, how it feels from the gates. From the birdcage to the gates, and that's a talent itself.
Yeah, it is. There's so many times you get to the gates, and I might say to James, has this thing got a bad action? And he'll go, no. And you're like, that's not good. Because some horses, not every horse has a perfect action, and some horses react to firm ground, and not so much even if they react to the firm ground in the race. Sometimes it takes them a bit of warming up to get used to the ground on the way to the gate, so they just might need a longer warm-up and stuff like that. So it is, that's where I guess with your team, having the guys that know your horses so well and ride them at track work, there's no questions when you get to the barriers.
How often do you feel the outcome of the race just cantering to the gate? How often do you just get either filled with amazing confidence that, all right, I can't lose this race, or the other way, geez, we're in a bit of trouble here?
I think this time of year you get that feeling a lot more often, because you're on better quality horses, and you've ridden them a lot leading into the race, but we're midweeks and they're changing all the time. The horses aren't as good, the quality's not as good, so you might feel all right going to the gates and think, oh yeah, I'm on a nice horse, but then so's Tom, Dick and Harry. We're on a Saturday, I'm going to be cantering to the gates in the Everest, and I'm going to have a pretty good idea whether we're the Slip is one race where every year I've cantered to the gates, and I've known whether I'm there or not. Overreach, the year I rode her, I cantered the gates, so the biggest smile on my face behind the gates.
So you think it's more noticeable in the 2-year-olds, you think?
Yeah, well, I just think because 2-year-olds change so much, as you know, and their attitude changes. Colts change from day to day. They can put on a show in the mounting yard. And I remember it was a horse of Anthony Cummings, and it got scratched in the slipper with Glenn Boss. Smart Missile, that's right. And I remember seeing it behind the gates, and I was like, he wasn't like this last start. He was up on his toe, he was sweating up. And so I take notice of a lot of other horses that are my opposition. And because the 2-year-olds, when you get to the better level, you've seen them a few times, and you get behind the gates, you look at yours and you look at theirs, it's like, oh, okay, he wasn't like that last time. So not only my horse, but you sort of get a bit of a sense of...
feel for everyone
But
else.
you've got it too as a top jock, because you're not just trying to ride your horse to the best of its ability, you're trying to beat the other 5 or 6 horses at a chances.
That's
so
right.
You've got to know how good they are and what they're feeling, and if they can win that race on that day.
Yeah, exactly right.
I suppose there'll be a lot of that this weekend with the Everest, and the race this year's changed complexion a lot in the lead up to, especially becoming Group 1 status on the 11th hour. Luke, who do you have for your contender pretender this year? It's a very open race in terms of form.
This is very tough this week because they're all champion horses, but I had to go with Growing Empire. I think he just narrowly beats I Wish I Win with Jolie Star for a close third. But look, his campaign this prep has been huge. He's been racing against the big boys. Kieran obviously has an opinion of him because he hasn't been racing his own age. He gets weight allowance here. I think he gets the run of the race, and he's too good at the finish.
Your pretender?
Yeah, it's got to be Traffic Warden. I just, look, the same sort of, it gets all the same sort of good things in this race, but just racing with those 3-year-olds is a big difference stepping into this company. You race mature horses that have been around and doing it for years. And look, I'm not saying he can't run a good race. I'm just saying he can't win this race. So.
Adrian, you've got 2 3-year-olds in the race this year. How's the stable feeling about overall chances?
Yeah, it's an intriguing year with the addition of, what's it, a third of the field's 3-year-olds. And,
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of older sprinters, so we're relying on the young ones coming through. And, Lady at Camelot, she's got some form at weight for age level. She ran first up in the Moir. I thought she was pretty honest there. Stuck on well. Form in around the favourite. I wish I win. She was pretty early in the campaign, and she was open a good deal of improvement. And timing-wise, we've been able to give her the prep that we wanted. We sort of, it was a quick turnaround to the shorts. It was only 2 weeks back from Melbourne on the float, and last minute decided, look, let's just throw her in the shorts, even though she was 6 kilos worse off at the weights. And
Tough run too.
it was, and then she was sort of caught wide, so we knew we were going into it not at our best setup, but we thought if she does enough and that someone can pick her up for the Everest off the back of that, we can go in like we did the Slipper, give her a month between runs, give her a trial, and have her at a peak for the Everest. That's been the thought process behind it.
And that trial, I saw Rachel looked like she took a bit more of a sit. Are you guys having a change of tactics there?
It might have been easier with a softer draw. We're out in 11, so it's hard. You either, I guess from 11, you're either covering ground, going back to last, or putting yourself in the race.
It's not like you guys ride one quiet, do you?
No.
But she's one. She's she was effective when she was able to do it. But
Yeah.
She's probably got, for me, looking at her in the race, is she's got enough speed to put herself in trouble if you do try and ride her quiet. Like them horses that have been ridden for speed so often, and it's not a race with a lot of speed in it. So you're going to be trying to come back in what will probably be a moderate to nice run race. It's not going to be a fast run race by any imagination. So for her to get back, and I'm not sure what she's going to do, and that will happen on the day with you guys. But I just know with horses that have, it's harder to get them back than to go forward when that's their pattern, and that's
they jump so well. And
to your
when
guys'
they
credit,
stop
and you've got
starting
Rachel
like that.
King on, and she's a great barrier jockey. They don't miss a kick
Yeah.
very often with Rach, so they usually come out, on the ball. So
51 kilos too, like you got all the advantages.
looks like we're going forward, guys. Done.
Decision made.
Use that comment off down. Give the instructions.
Actually, where do you want it, Tommy? Actually, tell us.
I just told you.
Heard it here first.
Well, you want it back to okay.
Well, what about Stormboy? He's probably the other speed horse in the race, and he's going to be out there with Growing Empire.
He's one that you'd certainly want to utilise it. Good draw inside of Growing Empire.
Is he's last in on the inside too?
He would be, so what are they, 1 to 5?
1 to
and
5, 6 to 12.
Yeah,
so that'd be good for him.
That suits him in terms of the loading pattern there. I thought he was a bit sharper away in his last run in the Golden Rose, which was good. If he can begin well, we want to sort of be positive on him and try and sort of take up the running. I think that's naturally, I think how a lot of people would see it and want to see him doing that. You'll probably be able to tell us better, but I think Brenton's really going to suit the horse coming over. He's always been a positive jockey, strong jockey. He's ridden a lot for us before, so he knows the style. But I like the fact coming back from Hong Kong, they sharpen you up over there, don't you? You really need to be.
You got to be fast out the gates over there.
Tactically pretty good, and like you said, you get a lot of different horses over there. You get a lot of thinkers, a lot of horses that have been around through the system for a long time. That you know all the tricks and everything you need to pull everything out of the bag to get them to jump well. So it's going to be calling on a bit of magic from Brenton in that regard, just to put us on the front foot.
And he's riding with confidence.
And that's the thing. He's a big race jockey. He's done well in the sprint race over there. Would he go to Dubai and ride the group
won the sprint over there.
Yeah, huge run by that horse too, by the way.
And he's won plenty of big races in Australia at the top level. So he's coming back home. It should be straightforward for him. And he's done very well since the Golden Rose. It's a nice setup. It can be done. We've sort of really tried to freshen him up, treat him a bit more like a speed horse now. Since that, prior to that, he was probably being trained to get over a little bit further. Just brought him back, freshened him up, and he looks he's ready to explode. So hopefully he can do so. I think he's every bit as good as any of those 3-year-olds in there. So if if they're good enough, he'll be there. Where where Growing Empire ends up in the run, I'm not sure whether they're trying to be a bit sort of soft or outside of us. I'm just hoping he hasn't had a lot of racing in Sydney. When he did, it was on debut. He got beat
And he ran off the track.
Ran off the track. If I'm trying to find a hole,
Yeah.
that's
pretty big hole,
one.
Like he probably should have won last start if we're all
Yeah.
Look, nothing against anyone, but he just hit the front touch too early, and it probably cost him at the finish, and that was against a decent field. So
And that's more to your point where I think he'd be happy to take a sit.
And that hopefully sort of works well for our couple then. I obviously need to try and land a big one with Storm Boy. That's sort of pretty important for his.
Group 1 needs to be ticked off.
for his commercial value. Like the guys, Coolmore have put a lot.
You have
of,
any pull in
lot of
making it
money.
a Group 1? Is that what was? You have any say there?
Storm Boy to
Were there
win
a
a
couple
Group
of
1?
strongly worded emails the week before?
It's definitely helped getting him in anyway. Tom Magna was asking the question if it was going to be a Group 1, and so I text Ray Thomas and he said, I think it's about to be announced in 15 minutes. So I was quick on the phone to Tom. Get him in. Can't use that as an excuse.
Well, the Everest, the key factor with the whole race is drawing in that next generation audience and taking in your approach. And we've all heard a little bit of the story about Gay taking the next gen approach and selling the shares in Storm Boy. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Gay walks into a pub and sells a horse.
Yes, like we go to the yearling sales every year. We sort of try and want to take control of our own sort of destiny each year. You want to get the horse you want to train, so we go out and try and buy the forward 2-year-old types. We stock up at the Magic Millions. We don't have owners for them all. We just want to get the horses. All right, we want that horse in the stable. We'll deal with it later. We'll find the owners later. Throughout the year, whether it be sort of different people coming to the stable, different marketing events, and Gay will use every opportunity. Any conversation she has.
She's a people person.
She is. She's great. Poor person who sits beside her on a flight to Melbourne like that.
Owns 3 racehorses when it
time,
lands.
I think there's a business card handed to me after every flight to Melbourne. You wouldn't believe who I met.
Gay just carrying a POS machine around.
She's unbelievable. So it's great. And so this group had been asking her to go out and do a talk at a function out at the Log Cabin pub in Penrith.
Her local.
And
First time out.
So anyway, she ended up being she didn't have anything on that day and said, "Yep, you know what, I can come out and do a talk, but just on the one provision that I can try and sell the audience a horse." And they're like, "Yeah, no, of course, do your best. You've got a captive audience here. They're all interested in racing. I'm sure they will all want to buy." So that's all she needed. They we loaded up the truck, took 2 horses out to the pub, and after she gave a talk, all right, guys, I've got a surprise for everyone. Come on out to the beer garden. They sort of just dropped the float doors and off walked. Actually, I think they had a filly out first, and then Storm Boy was just on the truck carrying on.
I tell you what,
I was like, I want to hear what's on there. So they said,
Yeah.
quick, put the filly away quick, and then they just brought him out, and everyone just stopped. And because when you see him, he's a pretty,
He's got so much presence about him.
he's an imposing horse. So I think everyone at that lunch just stopped and went, "Oh wow, we want to be involved in that." After Gay gave a good talk, so they all put a big syndicate together. I think everyone at the lunch might have jumped in, so it could have been 40, 50, 60 local business owners there involved, and they all jumped in, and that was sort of the start of it. So it's been a great.
You can't deny Gay's not an icon.
Certainly beats putting 50 in the pokies, that's for sure.
Definitely.
It's a wild ride behind.
They would
If
have
you
done that
came
as well.
home from the pub and told me you'd bought a horse, I would be ropeable.
What happens if it turned out to be Storm Boy?
Well,
Not so much. You got to give me. If I do it, you got to give me 6 months, all right?
I don't think horses work that way. But anyway, Tommy, you're on a horse that's very close to my heart, Little Sunshine in Paris. It was great to see her return to the Scirocco in just outstanding form. But your face when you got off her at the trials most recently, you looked like a Cheshire cat. How is she going?
Yeah, there's a lovely sense of timing about the mare, and I guess, and Adrian would know, like when you don't have to worry about gaining a start or gaining a slot, and you can just train your horse and not have to worry about how you're going to get it there, just get it there the way you wanted to, and not have to win your way into the race like she did last year. I think it's been a massive help with this mare because she performed so well fresh. So she had that run in the Scirocco, and the one thing I liked about the run is that it was a high pressure race. It was run at a strong tempo, and she still she dragged the rest of the field up off the back of that strong tempo and still run home in 32.7. So she was able to withhold that pressure, which she's going to get in the Everest, and obviously run that quick time. She still looked as hairy as a goat on the day.
I couldn't believe it watching a parade. I thought, this will be interesting to see where she's at, because it looks like there's a
lot of
significant amount of improvement
yeah.
when she won.
She's so on it too. So
Yeah,
she
just tried
very
to hide
rarely
it.
runs a bad race.
But she was the same when we had her up in Queensland. We couldn't get her to win in Queensland, so we were like, oh, that's Sydney's problem. And she left us. She was hairy, had a little potty gut. And then when she won, I was just watching on TV with my jaw on the floor, like Sunshine in Paris has just won a Group 1. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And she just looked the same in the Scirocco. I just couldn't believe it.
And she's just very consistent. You go through a form, and even though she doesn't like heavy ground or doesn't love it, she's still run 4th in a TJ and 5th in an all age. You know, she just finds she's got a good will to win, and that's what I think her biggest asset is. It feels, when I rode in the Scirocco, it was like Mumbai Muse had a target on her back, and she just chased her the whole way to the line, even though she was probably coming to the end of it. But she still run good time to do it, and she looked great in her trial, and her coat was there, but it wasn't spot on. I remember saying to Annabelle, like, in 2 weeks' time, you couldn't have timed this better. And I rode her on Tuesday morning, and she worked with Lady Laguna, who's a great workmate, and yeah, she was good.
They're looking
You
at your
tipping
face
one
now.
without tipping one there, Tom?
I think she'll run top 3. I don't know what, like, if it's first, second, or third. I don't know what it's going to be, but I just feel that she's the right horse for the race. She's had the right grounding. She's on Tuesday morning. It felt like she was ready to explode. I was trying to just keep a lid on her. We've only got 4 or 5 days to go, and so look, and she's, no matter what happens in the race, she's going to be able to adapt to it. She can be race on speed or race back, and I think the great thing about the Everest is you've got 11 other horses, and you'd follow any of them in the race.
100%.
So it's not a race where you're going to go, okay, I don't want to follow it, I've got to get on its back. Well, any of the 11 have got to at least get you to the 3 or the 200.
And she's drawn perfectly to have a bunny from anyone in the race. I'm surprised the market's overlooked her so much, but I suppose it's because she is still such a lightly raced mare at this level.
Well, I think it happens. She's 5 weeks in between runs, and everything that's run in between, they're going to get a little bit more market support. But I think the closer we get to the race, and when they see her in the yard, the smart guys are going to jump in. I think she's in at $10 now, so there's been a little bit of money for her. But also, at the end of the day, I don't think there's going to be a lot of money for any of them, because everyone's going to have their nibbles, because, as we said, you can make a case for all of them. I love the 3-year-olds in the race, and the one that I think's the best chance is the one that I also think is going to be the hardest one to watch, which is Stormboy, because I think he's one of the best horses in the race, and we've seen that. The day I chased him home in the Magic Millions, I've never let down so quick and then had the winner still going away from me. Like, that was a special win that day, and we've seen that first up this preparation as well. And if he can do that, we're going to find it hard to get near him. But then there's the other Stormboy that can do things wrong, miss the kick and stuff like that. So I think he's the hardest to beat in the race, but he could be the hardest one to watch as well.
It's very much a race. If you ran it 10 times, you could have 8 different winners.
100%,
Very easy.
Definitely. Well, have you spoke too much about, with Annabelle and Rob about tactics here? Is she going to try and jump forward and sit midfield, or will you just utilise that ripper turn of foot, or is it just on the day?
We haven't spoken a lot at the moment, and I guess with instructions, it's almost race day, isn't it now? Like, we're going to have, race 8, I think?
Well, how the track's playing,
so
if
there's going to be
rain,
7
so
races
many different
before.
factors.
Yeah.
So, and I won't do my form till Friday night, because there's no point worrying about what's going to happen now. I like to leave that till as late as possible as I can, and Annabelle and Rob are very open with instructions, and I think at this day and age a lot of trainers are, because you're putting on good riders. You can go down to the top 15 riders in Sydney, and you're putting them on because they know what they're doing. We do our form so well now. I think the professionalism in racing, especially when it comes to the jockeys, is a lot higher. Yeah. And it has to be. So I don't think there'll be a lot of instructions there. I think it'll be more so just ride her and ride to the pattern of the race. Yeah.
I think I probably already know your answer to this question too, but Jenny's just been breaking everyone's hearts this year, especially Mr. Brightside. How do you think Amelia's Jewel's going to stack up in the King Charles?
Well, I don't think it's going to be run exactly how a lot of people think it is on the weekend. The 2,000 metres at Randwick is very different to what races are run like over a mile. And the difference with, say, the Queen Elizabeth was, if you watch the race again, the biggest margin she put on us was in the first 300 metres, when everyone's getting to that first corner, which is a very short run to that corner, and we're all looking for our spots. And then we found our spots and looked up, and she was... And then by that time, it was too far to then chase her down
Yeah.
the back straight. Where over the mile, it's a lovely long run down that back straight. Everyone will be flowing into the race. You've got other speed horses like a Major Bill. That's not going to be too far away. That's the way she's used to being racing as well. So I don't think she's going to be able to steal a big margin on us over a mile as opposed to what she did over the 2000. And for a mare like mine, she can run a strong mile, and I'll be riding her to run a strong mile. So from the gate, I think we're forced to ride her a bit quieter, which is where I think some of her best wins have been. So I think she's a great chance. I think she's fully fit now. We'll probably be kind to her in the first couple of runs, and after a second run, it was like, okay, now I've got to put the work into you a bit and make sure you're there spot on for the grand final.
Yeah, I mean, it looks a perfect race for her. Annabelle and Rob do a great job of placing their horses back to weight for age, back up to the mile. I want to know, though, from you, Adrian, your horse, Major Bill, looks like the other speed horse in the race. What are you guys thinking there with old Jenny?
Yeah, he's probably the intriguing runner for a lot of guys, isn't he? Like he plays a big role in this race, I guess, with tactics and particularly how they're drawn. They're both sort of drawn out wide and inside Jenny there. So they're going to naturally be sort of rolling forward, and as you said, they've got that nice sort of run into the turn. But he's got plenty of sort of early speed himself, and we've seen that over the mile runs that he's had already. This preparation, I know this is a big step up for him once again, but I don't mind the setup that this race potentially brings for him.
It's a tough horse that needs to win it.
He's a tough horse, and a strongly run mile, him up on pace in a strongly run mile, I think will really suit. So
I could see Gay going, I think you could lead her. Why don't you go and try and lead her?
I wouldn't like to slow him down if you had second guesses, though. I think if you lit him up with Jenny, you'd have a hard time holding on to him.
Yeah, he usually gets the speed map print off, and there's a figure up there. And no matter what that figure is, it's always the same.
4 in front.
He always said, no speed in this race. No matter what, I was like, pride of Jenny. No speed, you should just roll forward and lead, But
don't worry about her. She'll be fine. He's got a decision to make out there. You're up inside of him.
So, yeah, look, I don't know if it'll be as straightforward as that, but that might be the conversation pre-race.
Info's got a tough task.
He's the right man for the job too.
But going back, I know he's an outsider, but you can make a few cases. His run at the Epsom might have been a little bit sort of below where we want him, just because he dropped back from weight for age. Such a nice weight in the Epsom. He was sort of down at 51.5, I think it was. And,
huge difference,
But his run before at weight for age against a couple of those same horses, he wasn't beaten far by Fangirl, and I thought he stuck on very well. So that was sort of his really good run at weight for age over the mile. It gave us confidence. All right, let's give him a high pressure mile run here and see if he can sort of stick on and run a bold race for us.
We'll have all the answers on Saturday, that's for sure. If we had him now, I'd be a millionaire.
It's going to be a great day, isn't it?
Well, speaking of Luke, what's your best bet for this weekend? Where are you heading?
Well, for Sydney or for Melbourne?
Anywhere. You can even give us Tari.
I really like Buckaroo in the Cup. I really do. I've been on him all spring. I've got him 50-1 running into this race. So, look, I've got him over the odds. He's getting a bit short now. But, look, if you had to get value, I think you take him and the Japanese horse Warp Speed, top 3 or 4.
And
I think he's underrated, that Warp Speed.
Looks good.
Yeah, they can breed a stayer. They do it well. They're brilliant trainers over there. And he's
Japanese jockey worries me.
Yeah, that's the only thing. That's the only thing.
Caulfield, tight track.
Yeah, not going with the local, but his runs behind his run behind those 2 champion Japanese horses have been huge. I know he's been beaten sort of 3 or 4 lengths, but that T.O. Corral
he'd blow him away.
Well, he'd win by 4 in a Caulfield Cup. Exactly. That's the difference. So it's a little bit hard to line up, but then again, he's 26-1 or 27-1. You can't underestimate
Japanese horse is a good price.
Well, I suppose then that leads us straight into your contender-pretender for the Caulfield Cup. You've just summed up your contender perfectly.
My contender is very easy to pick. My pretender, you're not going to like this one.
Jeez, he's brought us in here for
There's a bit of controversy. I'm glad you sat there and you didn't sit where Tommy's sitting.
Big holes in this fella. Jeez.
Look, it's very hard to knock a horse that hasn't missed a podium in 12 starts. And look, pretender is a very strong word, and I don't like using it here for him. But I just don't think he can win from the alley.
Yep.
And that's the only thing for me. Got a very good jockey on.
Gay disagrees. Barriers are like your mum and dad, she said. You can't choose them, so get on with it.
I love it.
That's my... Look, the Japanese horse got a bad alley as well, but look, it's just... The thing that separates your horse and let's say the Japanese horse from a punting perspective is the price.
Yeah.
I can take the risk at the 27s. I can't take the risk at the 7s. Not saying that either one of them can't win, but what do you do from there for starters?
It's a risk, yeah. Look, I wish we were able to draw a bit softer. That would have helped. Love to try and get a bit of cover with him. No doubt looked to be positive early, but a couple of speed horses I'm hoping can sort of string the race out, I guess.
That's the thing. It is a hotter cup.
Potentially. Depends what they sort of do on Deny Knowledge. Do they go to those tactics of running along, or I think it's the last time at the 2400 they were a bit more conservative, so that might be the key. And if they are rolling along early, that helps our sort of cause sort of find a position. Tim's going to need to be at his best out there, but he knows the horse really well.
Yeah.
He was very keen. Like he had the option there to, a few weeks out. All right, where do you want to be? There's an Everest runner there for you, or we're a live chance in a Caulfield Cup.
Who rode him last start?
Good question.
Melbourne.
Ethan Brown.
Do you think, nothing against Ethan, knowing horses, he's a big, strong horse, do you think it would have made a difference having Tim on that day?
I think it would have. Yeah, no doubt. And look, he did nothing. He rode him great.
Right, it's just knowing the horse.
Yeah. But I think I think Tim might have been able to get him to switch off that little bit more that he might have needed to there.
He's such a good judge of pace, Tim. And that's the thing, going back to my starting five, that's why you guys use him, because he knows how to rate his horse. And the ride on Saturday is going to be full of that from that alley.
Yeah, no, definitely.
If you could have your pick of any horse in this field, Tommy, who would you choose?
It's a difficult one. I've ridden Buckaroo and I like him. I think he's got a good sense of timing about him. And over the 2400, he's been building towards this. And
any concerns by the trip?
Big concern. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be rocks or diamonds with him. I think he'll either come out and win, or he's going to run midfield. I don't think there's going to be much in between. And I love a horse that's going into it full of confidence, and that's what he's done. And he got beat by a very good horse in VSC in the last start.
Yep.
So,
do you think he should have won last start?
I think he got there a bit early.
I thought Joe had him a pair further back than he probably wanted him, and that was the difference. I know you can't take the run away from Viesestina because it sat through the trip, whipped up outside him, kept him in a pocket and forced him to work. But I just think if he's a touch closer, he's just that half length better.
He's a tricky one with the barriers, though. He can flop out sometimes. He's not very good in there.
Yeah.
So he can come out slow. And I did sit outside the leader on him one day, but I gave him a pretty good wake up. And Joe's the best barrier jockey there is. So he'll get him out and get him into a good spot. But I just think over the 2400, it'll be more important just to get him to switch off. But I agree with you. I think he's the one to beat in the race. And you can't beat winning form. And apart from his last start and your horse. And I'm actually riding a horse for Snowden tomorrow in the last race. Bahar, I can never say its name, but it ran second to him over in Europe. So looking forward to seeing him go around.
I'm glad you're not the only one with names. I was trying to get Sayday
Oh.
and I was like, I'm off screen trying to practice it. And I was just going to go, that horse.
Yeah, I left school at year 9, so I've got a good excuse.
Can we have a word to the namers and make sure that they're actually easy English?
At least I like the pronunciation beside the name, like in a translation book.
Exactly.
Come out of Ireland with like asterisks above their names and stuff.
I feel sorry for the race callers, don't you?
Oh, I know. Well, Adrian, who's your best for the weekend? Any horse, any race, except the Everest.
I think we'll go with a filly called Dominator. She's in the Reginald Allen. She's second up this preparation. I think there's some nice improvement in her. Tried up really well in between runs. I just love the way that she's improving throughout this preparation. Just when you feel like you got horses like just in the zone there, and just they're improving every day in work, every piece that we see her. So
it's an open race, that too, isn't it?
It's open enough, like it's a race. If she does show that improvement, she's and she'll appreciate the slight step up in trip. But she's a lovely filly.
What about you, Tommy? What's your best ride other than Sunshine in Paris?
One that's not in the market, Athabaskan. I like him. He's at the 2,600 metres. He's an out-and-out stay. He was ridden a little bit upside down in the Met-Trop where he went forward and had to do a bit of work, but probably the good toughen-up run he needed for the 2,600. And we saw him run second in the Sydney Cup after sitting wide most of the trip. So I just think he's a forgotten horse a little bit just off his last run, but I know with John O'Shea, he's got him fit. He looked really good at track work this morning. So he's probably one that wouldn't be spoken about too much on Saturday, but if he gets up in the first race, and just remember that I've given him a plug.
It's very open,
We'll
that race
post the
too.
reel.
Like, that's very open.
Few stayers out of 4 minutes.
Yeah, correct.
It'll be the
Correct.
It'll be the best stayer that wins it. I think he's the best stayer in the race.
Kick the day off, all right, if you get him home.
Wouldn't be too bad. It'd be a nice little entree, wouldn't it?
I'll be over the other side of the fence shouting at you too.
It's bullshit putting a 2600 first race of the day.
Oh,
And you know
that's
what it's like.
brutal.
Oh, mate.
It's a lung buster.
Especially if you're riding, especially if
two
you're riding
races to get
54 during the day or
it
something.
takes 2
like
races to get over it. So don't back me in race 2 or 3 because I'll still be recovering from race 1.
Well, I'm going to Caulfield for my best bet this week. Race 7, the Millennium. I like Estriella. She was in talks for an Everest and now she sees very winnable Group 2 sprint. Escapes the Valley, she was unplaced, but I think her runs just give her a lot more credit than she's getting at the moment. I think she was in elite company and today she draws the rails. Well, sorry, Saturday. Drawn the rails, Ben Mellum aboard. She won't be firing the run. What do you think about Estriella there, Luke?
Yeah, look, I'm with you. And if you can get a bit of value there, then yeah, they'll be having my money on.
350
First
at the
time
moment.
she's drawn a gate this prep to, isn't it?
Yeah,
I know,
I think
poor
so.
doll.
That's
Well-
the thing. Might be our beer money at the Everest, or it'll be the difference between champagne or soda water, one of the two.
Yep. I want to know before we go, can you guys, if someone outside of racing came to you and said, what's the Everest? What's the concept? Why do you want to be in it? You have 30 seconds elevator pitch for the Everest. How do you
You
explain
go
it?
first, so I can think about it.
I'll move it off the side. Racing for 20 million, the best, minute you're going to see in racing with the best quality horses.
Very brief summary. I like it.
Mine's more brief. I think just if you go to the races on Saturday and witness the Everest yourself, it's going to be a sold-out crowd. You've got the best horses, best jockeys, best trainers. As I said, the top 5 jockeys from Melbourne are going to be here as well for the race. You don't get much better than that. And if you come there once, I think you'll be hooked for life.
Is there a point, like, I know it's only in its infancy, but is there a point where you, like, come through that tunnel on Saturday or a Saturday in the past and gone, shit, this is what they want it to be. This is the day. Or is there, like, a media event, or what was it that really said the Everest is going to be the stamp on Sydney?
It's a pretty spectacular feeling, actually. When you guys are round at the gates, you probably don't feel as much of that buzz in the crowds. When you're standing out the front, in amongst it all, they're blaring out the tunes. The whole crowd singing the Everest song, whatever it is now. But
Sweet Caroline,
Sweet
is it?
Caroline,
Yeah.
They've all had a few beers by that race
Everyone
too.
is
Race seven,
humming by
everyone's
that
humming.
stage, and like you said, everyone's buzzed up all day. It's been the build up of that anticipation to see the best of the best there. You guys are circling behind the gates. You hear the chopper above.
It's funny.
And it's just
but it's funny you say that because that is the only race we can hear it.
really.
Wow.
Like you're at the 1200 metre start, you usually can't hear a word. Like even on the biggest days that Winks has been around. When you hear them sing that great Sweet Caroline,
Give us a line, will you?
I'm not that good. I'm not good. But that's we sit behind the gates and we're all going far out. Like how good's this? It's
one
the
that gets
only
the
time.
hairs on the back. The
It
chills
is.
down you while you're standing there. That's the one that always goes for me. I don't know how these guys are getting into the gates and not like feeling the nerves. Like I'm a mess there standing in the crowd. I just don't know how you guys are so
It's that
cool,
trumpet,
calm and collected.
that
on the
trumpet
day.
at Melbourne Cup is probably the only thing that I've seen that gets close to it.
Yeah, it's big.
So,
It's going to be a huge race day. This is my first Everest. And like you were saying, Tommy, like even just watching it through the TV the last few years, the coverage is great. But when you've got like the helicopter, the crowd and the horses are loading in the barriers, you're like, oh, I just want to see how this ends. Like it's
The
just
only
the
people that don't
anticipation.
like it are jealous because they're not there. I think it's
Yeah.
it's really simple.
got to get out there.
well, that's
Oh,
not
it's
us
just-
this year.
No, exactly.
It's changed racing. It's awesome. Very next gen approach, which we're all about here.
100%.
Well, that is us for today. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's
Thank
been
you.
great to have a little
Appreciate
Everest special. And we'll catch you all next week on Racing Xtra, where we'll be back up in Queensland with Nick Percat to rip in to the Gold Coast 500. Racing Xtra is proudly brought to you by Corpshaw. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts for a next gen racing experience.